Hello there, my name is Owen Williams, and in 2018 I saw 16 different movies. In this video I'm going to be ranking all of them. I know 16 isn't a very large amount compared to a lot of the other movie critics out there, but I wasn't really focusing on trying to see as many movies as possible. In this video there won't be any spoilers for any of these movies, and I will be ranking them from my least favourite to my favourite. Some of the movies I saw this year I despise with all my heart and soul, but some of them I love with all my heart and soul. This is, if you're new here, I've already introduced myself, but this is my review channel. I also have a gaming channel, which I'm going to forget to leave a link in the description, so don't even bother. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Leave in the comments down below what movies you saw in 2018 and what your ranking of them is. And if you, and I know this video is very, very late, so I'm very, very sorry about that. So, before I bore you all to death, let's jump in with my number 16 ranking. Going into number 16 is A Wrinkle in Time. Wrinkle in Time is a book adaptation, and quickly a short story before I get into this. In year 5 at my school, we were reading through A Wrinkle in Time. It was the last term of the year, so we had 2 books to read, Little Grey Men and Wrinkle in Time. Little Grey Men was meant to be more important, so we spent the majority of the last day reading that because the teachers wanted to get it all done. And then we went to Wrinkle in Time. Everyone in the class preferred Wrinkle in Time. Because we spent so much time reading Little Grey Men, we stopped Wrinkle in Time just as it was getting to what I thought was the climax and was actually the beginning of the 3rd act. The reason I tell you this story right now is because that's apparently exactly what happened to Jennifer Lee, the writer of the Wrinkle in Time movie. The movie ends when the 3rd act starts in the book. This isn't meant to be a spoiler because I'm not telling you anything about what happens in this, but that's exactly what happened. They miss out what is my favourite part of the book, which instantly makes this my least favourite film of the year. While I was watching this movie, I was thinking the entire time, they're adding in all this extra stuff, but are they going to actually get the whole movie done? And no, they won't. But this isn't to say that this is a bad movie. If you enjoyed the book and wanted to see a good book-to-movie adaptation, then you're probably not going to like this movie. But if you haven't seen the book, and you want a good sci-fi fantasy adventure movie, you will probably like this movie. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. He is the sidekick in Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2. Cannot remember his name off the top of my head. He is in this movie for 5 minutes. He's the best part of it. He's so funny. But this movie has great acting. I think the screenplay is pretty good, even though it missed out a lot of important things. The editing's, I don't really know how to judge anything. The cinematography is incredible in this, and I still don't know what directors do, so please, somebody tell me. Basically, I hated this movie, but if you never read the book, or you hated the book, or you don't really care about the book, then you might really enjoy this movie. This is coming a lot from somebody who loved the book, and it's one of my favourite books ever. I did read the book last year. I finally got to finish it, and the ending, if you get anything from this part of the review, read the book. The book is so good. Okay, moving on to number 15. Okay, number 15 is The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales. This is probably the movie that's most likely that nobody watching this video has seen. It is a movie that originally came out in France, in French. However, it was kind of popular there, so they decided to bring it over to Britain. The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales is 3 separate stories all intertwined by a farm. They all take place on a farm with the same characters. And I went to see this with my grandmother and my sister. I wasn't really expecting much when I got into it. And to be honest, it's not that great of a movie. If you are a little kid or you have a little kid who like interesting characters and just like funny slapstick stuff, then this is probably a good movie. I wouldn't say that this is a bad movie. I didn't actually see any movies I would say are terrible this year, but I would say that this movie isn't that interesting. So the 3 stories, if I was going to rank them, the first story is okay. It drags on definitely a lot too long. I won't give any of the plot. Actually, I could probably give some of the plots. Basically, in the first story, the stork who's delivering a baby gets too tired and drops it off at the farmhouse, leaving a pig, a goose, and something else having to try to deliver the baby. But of course, they fail and shenanigans ensue. The second story is a fox who keeps trying to steal eggs from the farm gets the help of a big bad wolf, and the big bad wolf asks the fox to raise the eggs so they can eat them when it's hatched. But the fox then falls in love. The second story of this is by far the best. It is so beautiful, and this movie is probably worth watching just for the second part of this. The third story suddenly jumps to a Christmas theme, and I genuinely can't even remember the proper plot. There's a cute scene with some dogs, but really, it's not that great. So this movie isn't great for anybody above the age of 8, I would say, but if you're below the age of 8 or know someone below the age of 8 who enjoys animated movies, I would actually probably recommend this to them. Okay. Coming in for number 14 is Solo, a Star Wars Story. Rogue One, a Star Wars Story, I know this isn't Solo, but I need to talk about this, is my favourite Star Wars movie ever. It's one of the few movies that's made me cry, and I adore it. So I was really excited to see Solo come out. But I can probably safely say that this is my least favourite Star Wars movie of all time. The plot of the movie basically follows Solo before he met Princess Leia and Luke, and his journey from a homeless kid who does crimes in a city planet to the Millennium Falcon, Chewbacca, and knowing, what's his name? The guy Donald Glover plays. Lando Calrissian, that's it. Sorry. Lando Calrissian and Donald Glover, they are the best parts of this movie. They are so great, and I adore it. But adore them, but the movie doesn't know what it's doing. Near the beginning of the movie, they seem to set up a plot that would be the whole movie. Then halfway through, they abandon that to go on to something else, which then connects back to Rogue One. But then that would mean that Han Solo is a lot older than we think he is, and that him dating Princess Leia is really creepy. And it gets really confusing, especially near the end, because everyone is just no idea what's going on. Also, this is the only Star Wars movie I think that ever didn't have R2-D2 in it, which I found very surprising because he's my favourite part of every Star Wars movie. Chewbacca is in this though, and Chewbacca is great as always. No idea who played Chewbacca, but there's also another robot that's introduced, who Lando owns, who's a pretty great character, one of the best characters in the movie. If you haven't seen it, you've probably heard of all the reviews that are mocking it, and I think those reviews are pretty just, actually. I was hoping for a much better movie than this, especially because of Star Wars, which is my favourite movie franchise ever. I'm really excited for Episode 9, though, because I actually really loved, Episode 8. The Last Jedi. I know that one was hated a lot, but I really loved it. Solo, very, very disappointing. I really hope if they do the Obi-Wan Kenobi film in the future that it explains a bit about what happened in Solo and also redeems it. And coming in at my lucky number is Incredibles 2. The first Incredibles came out the year I was born and is one of my favourite movies ever. I've probably watched it every single year since it came out, and I adore that movie. And this sequel, I waited so long for and I was so excited for, was very, very disappointing. If you've seen the first one, there's a pretty obvious way that the sequel should have gone, but they do not go there. They definitely set up a very interesting plot, and I think the villain in this one is a lot better than Sinjo. And yeah, I did like the memes that came out of this one, to be honest, and those are probably the best part of this. I liked seeing the family again, the family dynamic, and it was interesting that they decided not to do any time jump whatsoever. But a lot of it was pretty disappointing, because it felt like they had this whole other idea, but then everyone who's going to see the movie had a different idea. If that makes any sense. I don't want to it's very difficult to talk about this movie without spoiling the plot twist. But if you really enjoyed the first one, then I probably wouldn't recommend this. But if you didn't enjoy the first one, I know a few people who didn't enjoy the first one but really enjoyed this one. So try it out if you didn't enjoy the first one. You might find that you were surprised and you really, really liked it. Coming in at number 12 is The Barrier Movie. That's not the name of the movie. Basically, every movie past here, I enjoyed. The movies before here had some great moments, I kind of enjoyed them. But the reason that this movie is The Barrier Movie is I don't know what happened in it, but everyone in my family really enjoyed it. So I watched this movie when I was very tired one night, and I didn't really focus on what was going on. I know everyone I know who watched this enjoyed it, and it had a really star-studded cast. Every part that I saw, I very much enjoyed. The reason it's not higher on the list is because I slept through most of it, or was just blanked out for most of it. I know a lot of people said that this movie would be bad because they were rebooting Ocean's 11, but with women. And a lot of people were comparing this to Ghostbusters 2016, which I love that movie. That is my favorite Ghostbusters movie, and probably my favorite movie of 2016. So it's painful to listen to the reviews of that. But this one, everything I saw, I really, really liked. I can't really point out any plot holes because they were probably all explained in the movie, but I was just blanked out for that. So I'm kind of almost telling this movie second-hand, which feels odd, but everyone who enjoyed the first one, I think will enjoy the second one, or this one. I don't know where in the series this lands. I'm certain it's a few years after the first one, because that's revealed pretty near the beginning. But it's a pretty interesting movie. All the characters I really, really liked and found interesting, especially like the main 8. Ocean's 8, it's 8 characters. There were some bits that I thought kind of, the parts I did see, there were some fan servicey parts, which I did not like, because I was expecting that if I could go into this movie, I could enjoy it without knowing anything about the other movies. But it turns out that my parents had to explain to both me and my sister about the first movie for me to understand some of this movie. But I guess you could probably understand most of this if you hadn't seen the first one, because I got the plot. It was just near the end that this stuff came in. And there was one bit that I didn't quite understand, but that was also probably explained. But anyway, I enjoyed what parts of this movie I saw. Great cast, and that's about it. Coming in at number 11, the last movie before we get into my top 10 of the year, is Rampage, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I could not tell you one name of a character that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson plays, just the name in the movie. He is such an iconic person on his own. He's like this star power. I don't think many people can name a character he plays in a movie. Maybe in the Fast and Furious franchise, I haven't really seen that. Although I'm interested in Hobbs and Shaw, which I saw the trailer for recently. But enough about him. Rampage was a movie that I wasn't really interested in, but it's the perfect plane movie, if that makes any sense. It doesn't really have character development or plot, but that's not what you want on a plane movie. On a movie that you watch on a plane, you can't hear any of the dialogue because there's a baby screaming 3 rows back. This movie, I enjoyed a lot of the action. Did it have a sense of swallowed by an explosion? Check. A fight scene that took ages? Check. It ticked all the parts of a plane movie. I enjoyed this movie. I actually don't know how it ends because our flight landed before it ended. I watched Justice League and Thor Ragnarok on the flight. Enjoyed both of them. One of them made me throw up. Nothing to do with the movie, just get plane sick. But I really, really enjoyed this movie. All the characters I really liked. And there was one thing that if you know me, I'm a big fan of dogs. So you can probably guess that one scene, if you've seen the movie, that I didn't like. But that's all I'm really going to say about this. It's an enjoyable movie, but it's your classic action movie that's just there to really make money. There's no artistic, I don't want to say integrity, but there's no real artistic aim in this to try to make this the best movie ever or to change the genre. But it's definitely an enjoyable movie nonetheless. And coming in at number 10, going into the top 10 movies of the year, is Wreck-It Ralph 2. Ralph Breaks the Internet. This movie, I really enjoyed the first Wreck-It Ralph movie. It had a really climactic ending, and I thought the character development in it was great. Wreck-It Ralph 2, I would not say was as good as the first one, though. There were some very sweet moments, and there was one scene, the musical number in it is my favorite Disney musical number ever. I could not stop laughing. It was genius. And all the parts in the trailers, a lot of things are Disney princesses. They were really great in the story. Like, I expected them to be like one scene characters, just there for the fan service. They were really interesting characters. Like, they went into the Disney princess stuff and everything, and I really loved that. They also had a lot of shout-outs to other parts like Stormtroopers and Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. I felt like there was a missed joke with the Stormtroopers, but I'm not going to go into that. You could probably see it if you know about Stormtroopers and you watch the movie. So all the parts with the other characters were pretty fine. They kind of missed out a lot of the characters from the first movie because, as you can see from the trailer, they're in the internet. They're not in the arcade anymore. And they almost abandon a lot of the characters that made the first movie so great. Ralph's character is really interesting in this, though. I was worried how they were going to develop Ralph's character. They definitely develop him really interestingly in this one. And they make it really interesting, but also kind of weird at some points. And the Glitch Girl's character, who I loved in the first one, is also really interestingly developed. There's a lot of great new characters that are introduced, and there's some weird things that happen in it as well. But it's a really great combination of weird and wonderful, which is, just thinking about it now, exactly the best way to describe the internet. So I think it succeeds in its job of going into the internet. Although, actually no, I could make a joke, but it would make it, but definitely be a spoiler. Actually, wait, no, I don't know. I'm going to skip to the next thing now. Number 9 on the list is Game Night. This was the second movie I saw in 2018. Thought it was a 2017 movie when I first saw it. It has a dog in it. Great thing with a dog. It stars Jason Bateman from such fame as Modern Family, which is one of my favorite TV shows ever. And I enjoyed this movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. It's a very enjoyable movie, if that makes any sense. The parts with the dog are hilarious. I'm going on about the dog way too much, though it's not in the plot very much. It has a really interesting plot to it. However, by the end, it gets pretty confusing. It seems to lose itself by the end of the movie in plot twists, but the first 80% of the movie are really, really funny and really entertaining. It shows a lot of characters' development throughout the course of the movie. It almost it's a great one-off movie. It's not a perfect movie like the one by Quentin Tarantino that everyone loves, that has Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta in it, and Total Out of Order. I cannot go on about that for ages. I will remember it at number 3 or something. But it's a good movie. I definitely enjoyed it. It's a good late night movie, but it kind of lost itself near the end. But I really enjoyed this one. Not my favorite of the year, obviously, because it's only a number 9. But it was definitely. I know Watch Mojo actually put it as the 11th best movie of the year in their honorable mentions, which I could not understand. There were a lot of movies that I would put above, even though I didn't see them. But anyway, I did enjoy this, and if you like Jason Bateman, then you probably will as well. Okay, at number 8 on this list is Ant-Man and the Wasp, the first Marvel movie of the year. Funny story, this is the movie that I went to on my first ever date. That relationship is over now, but hopefully nothing to do with Ant-Man and the Wasp. I really enjoyed this movie. I think it is not as good as the original, but only by a tiny bit. It expands the characters. It has a really interesting villain, one of my favorite Marvel villains ever. And I love the father-daughter relationship in this. It has a bunch of really sweet scenes, and it's meant to be coming just after Civil War. And there's obviously a much more popular Marvel movie that came out this year that was probably on everyone's minds before this. And the end credit scene is surprising, to say the least. but I would still recommend this movie to anyone. I really enjoyed it. I've seen it twice. I've seen this movie twice and the #1 spot twice. So this is probably one of my most watched movies of the year. Again, really enjoyable cast. It has still can't remember his name, but I mentioned him in the Wrinkle in Time review a few minutes ago. He is probably one of my favorite actors, even though I can't remember his name. Anything he is in is hilarious. He is so good at whatever role he's doing. But he was actually probably the highlight of the movie for me. There's a bunch of really, really interesting scenes. They put quantum in front of everything. And yeah, that's pretty much all it has to say about the movie. I would recommend this to anyone. Unless you really hate violence, then I would not recommend this movie to you at all. Coming in at number 7 is Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's, I think, his newest movie. I did not realize that this was a book adaptation. But when I did, I haven't read the book, but I instantly knocked it down a few spots because I have never seen a book adaptation that is better than the book. Only barely reaching the book are Princess Bride and To Kill a Mockingbird. But To Kill a Mockingbird is one of my favorite books ever, and Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies ever, so it's kind of evenly balanced almost. But anyway, enough about those. This movie was really enjoyable. There were hundreds of pop culture references in it that I adored. There were some really beautiful scenes in it. It's kind of a love letter to gaming and to pop culture. There are so many references, and the ending is so beautiful. The characters in it take twists and turns that you don't see coming. The best parts of this are probably the ending, because the ending takes a turn that is really, really interesting without seeming to just suddenly jam it in. Like, you can see it coming, but you didn't see it coming, if that makes any sense. I do definitely want to read the book, and I'm going to try to make that one of the books I read in 2019. Probably review that book at the end of the year, and probably re-review the movie, because it'll definitely change my opinion on the movie. Probably negatively as well. Might bump down a few spots. But without seeing the book, I really enjoyed this movie. The ending, there was one part that I felt dragged on a little bit too long, but that was missed out almost instantly. And the villain seemed a bit too villainy. Like, really too villainy. There wasn't really any redeemable factor in it. I don't know if the book had a redeemable factor, but I really like villains that I can think, but are they right? And I'll get onto that again in a few minutes. But Ready Player One, definitely a great movie, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who likes pop culture in any way. Coming in at number 6 is Christopher Robin, starring Ewan McGregor, the film adaptation of Winnie the Pooh. This movie was a surprise. It wasn't the biggest surprise of the year for me, I'll get onto that later, but it was one of the best movies I saw this year. Incredibles 2 and Solo I was expecting to be really, really good. They disappointed me. This one I was expecting to be boring and bland. It surprised me so much. I loved this movie. It appeals to everyone on the face of the earth. It is really magical. It's like captures the magicalness of adventure in the wilderness, which makes it so much more interesting than a lot of the other movies. This is probably the most magical movie of 2019, which is all I have to say about it. I don't really have anything bad to say about this movie, because I don't have anything incredible to say about it. But it's one of my favorite. Of course it's one of my favorite, but I think that it's a movie that anyone, anywhere would enjoy, basically. You don't even need to have seen the original books or TV shows to enjoy it. You can just enjoy it for it being it. If that makes any sense. It probably doesn't. Let's just move on. This is a mess. I just realized, out of the remaining 5 movies on this list, 4 of them are superhero movies, which shows a lot about me. But at number 5 is Deadpool 2. I cannot quote any part of this movie without teaching any kid watching at least 5 new swear words. But this movie is so funny. The first one I felt started off really strong, but then kind of trailed off near the end. This one is funny consistently all the way through, and really teaches you about Deadpool as a hero. He is a horrible person. He will kill anyone. But he only kills... I phrased that wrong. He is a bad person for killing so many people, but he's the only person willing to kill the bad people who deserve to die. And it's kind of the moral of the story. You see him tested in ways that I wasn't expecting a Deadpool movie to go, and I especially wasn't expecting to feel emotional during a Deadpool movie. But this was the biggest... No, again, not the biggest surprise. That comes later. I've referenced it twice now. Okay, but this was this is my favorite Deadpool movie, and probably my favorite Marvel movie made by 20th Century Fox. I really want Deadpool to be brought into the MCU more than any other character. This was, out of a movie with a lot of disappointing sequels, this was the best sequel. Hands down. But if you are below 27, don't watch it. I know I watched it. Learned a few new things. Swear words, anything. Okay, let's move on. Coming in at number 4 is the movie I saw for my birthday, Black Panther. This movie was great. The cast was incredible, the villain had an agreeable motive, and the action scenes were awesome. I loved every minute of this movie. The only reason it actually doesn't rank any higher is because the other movies I somehow love more. Every character in this movie was really, really well developed, apart from the love interest. The love interest just felt... Okay, every character in this movie, Shuri, Okoye, T'Challa himself, is actually developed three-dimensionally. And some of them have been in movies before, some of them are just mentally insane, which makes them really interesting. But the ones that I felt were weaker, to say the least, was the Queen of Wakanda and the love interest. They were definitely characters that had their moments to shine, but they were almost overshadowed by the fact that the most important quality was that they were related to T'Challa. All the other characters in this movie had, like, character arcs. You could see them change throughout the movie. Apart from them, they kind of just were there for the sake of being there. And that was definitely the biggest part of the movie for me. The rest of it was absolutely awesome. I loved it, and I would definitely see it again with a few friends, or just with friends, or on my own. I watched a lot of movies on my own. But anyway, moving on. And coming in at number 3, the top 3 movies of this year, is Avengers Infinity War. A lot of people would probably put this at number 1, but the other 2 movies were so great, and I love them so much, I wouldn't put them there. Not to knock this movie in any way, shape, or form, because this movie was incredible. I loved every minute of this. There were some emotional scenes I had to help my sister stop crying at some points, because it was really sad. Didn't have the biggest surprise of the year for me. That is coming up. But the ending, if you don't know what the ending is, I am impressed. Tell me how. I won't delve into it in case you've managed to make it this far, but I was shocked by this movie. They took 60 characters that they spent 10 years building up and managed to give them all a decent part in it. Of course, there weren't any really side characters apart from Pepper Potts, but apart from that, like, this movie was brilliant at what it was trying to set out to do. I am so excited for Endgame, which will probably be my favorite movie of 2019 if the Russo brothers manage to pull it off. But I loved this movie so much. It was exactly what I was waiting for, and definitely my favorite MCU movie of the year. So I've been talking about the biggest surprise of the year this whole video, and this is the entry that kind of made it happen. When I first heard about this movie, I was pretty hyped for it. Then I saw the first trailer and I was more hyped. Then the first reviews came in and my hype increased. But then I thought, what if it's not as good and I'm just going to be disappointed when I see it? So my hype decreased, but then I thought, what if it's even better than that? So my hype like quadrupled. So I had super high expectations for this movie and I was worried that it wouldn't be able to fulfill them. But Into the Spider-Verse, oh my gosh! This movie came out of nowhere. I saw it like 3 days before the end of the year and I thought my list was already set in stone. But this movie was so good. If you have not seen it, I really recommend it. This is my favorite Spider-Man movie ever. All the other Spider-Man movies, they used to be my favorite superhero movies, but this movie knocks it out of the park. The music, the animation, the character development, and the final battle sequence is so beautiful. They develop all the characters the perfect amount. It's emotional, it's exciting, it's funny. There were people in the cinemas who could not stop laughing at the whole thing, including me. This was the surprise smash hit for me of the year, and I would go see this movie 100 more times. However, those of you who have been watching this channel since before I took my very long hiatus will know what number 1 is going to be, which was so good. And let's get on to that. I love dogs. I can't really try to hide it. I loved this movie so much. Let's start off with the bad before I start complimenting this movie so its head goes so big that it can't leave. But the one thing I'd say bad about this movie is they spend a lot of time developing some characters near the beginning that I was very excited for, who kind of fall off the map by the third act, or in the third act. And that's the only thing that I can diss about this movie. Let's talk about the great stuff. Wes Anderson, I cannot explain how to be a director. The only way that I can fathom it is if I watch Wes Anderson's movies. He explains how to be a director just by looking at his movies. The voice acting was great, the animation was stunning, the cinematography was beautiful, the set design was impeccable. Half this movie takes place on a trash island and it is stunningly beautiful. The character development is insane. There's so many good things that I could say about this movie. I've watched it twice and I loved it both times. The villain is, you can actually see them change and I can actually get behind them. The Spider-Verse villain was my favorite villain of the year, but this movie's villain was so great. I loved every part of this movie apart from the thing that I mentioned earlier. But anyway, that's my really late ranking to the 2018 movies. I'm planning on seeing a lot more in 2019, and by the end of the year I will get a whole list out. I will try to do it every month, or just a review every movie I see, then at the end of every month go through each one, go through all of them and rank them, then at the end of the year rank them all, if that makes any sense. But I'm glad to be back on YouTube again doing this kind of stuff. I also have a gaming channel called ODF. Works better if you look up just Owen Dog Fan, no spaces. But anyway, I think I'm going to end this video here. You're seeing this, I'm actually recording this a week in advance, but you will see it on the 10th. On the 17th, I don't really know what I'm putting out. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Have a dog-tastic day. No, that's my other channel intro. Have a great time. I'll see you all later. Goodbye.